Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Gareth Salomon. I'm the founder of Zenon Connect. I'm also a chartered accountant. I've been in practice since 2003, and I've had my own practice since 2010. So we're going to walk you through Zenon Connect today, and if you do have any questions at all, please do put them in the chat or in the Q&A box, and I'll get to them when I can. And obviously, if you've got any follow-up questions after, I'll provide my email address as well. So during this webinar, we're going to have a look at what Zenon Connect does. Then we'll have a look at a walkthrough of Zenon Connect itself. So obviously that's the main section, is having a look at the software. Then we'll have a look at pricing for accountants and bookkeepers in practice. And we'll look at our offer that we've got currently running at the moment as well at the end. Probably going to take around about 40 minutes, but that depends how many questions we get. So starting off, what does Zenon Connect do? Well, in a nutshell, Zenon Connect is a cloud-based Xero and QuickBooks online add-on, which saves accountants and bookkeepers time by automatically detecting errors and issues in bookkeeping data and generating a prioritized checklist to address them quickly, systematically, and consistently. So the main core of the system is essentially the Zenon Connect connects to your bookkeeping package. It pulls in all of the bookkeeping data that's in there, and it runs it automatically through 21 different bookkeeping checks, and then automatically generates this prioritized checklist for either you or your team member to go through and say, yep, this issue is correct, let's dismiss it, or this is incorrect, let's change it. And often you can push back the changes to Xero or QuickBooks from Zenon Connect without even having to go into the underlying bookkeeping package. I've got some other features as well, so it's not just the data checks, but that is the main core of the system. I should mention that we are integrating with Free Agent and also Sage at the moment, so they'll be coming in very soon. So there really is three arms to what Zenon Connect does. So essentially for accountants and bookkeepers in practice, we mentioned this error checking feature that we've got. We've got this 21 different checks and the ability to push back changes from Zenon to the underlying bookkeeping package. It's also got the client panorama, which gives you a bird's eye view of all of your clients and the data quality of all of those clients. And that's on one screen as well. So it's really handy. Also, we've got the proposal and billing data. So you can get transactional data information for all of your clients on one screen. And I'll show you that shortly as well. And recently we've introduced the ability to add your package threshold. So for example, if it's turnover up to 100,000 is one package, then you can specify that within the settings. And it allows you to monitor actual activity automatically in real time against those package thresholds that you set for each individual client. And that in line with the data health report, which you can send to your clients as well. It's really helpful for that billing and rebilling process, whereby perhaps you're increasing prices as well as the initial proposal stage. It's really handy to have that data to hand. So you've got the transactional data, but also the data quality information as well. So the data checks, the main core of the system, these bookkeeping data checks are split into 4 sections, and we'll have a look at some of these shortly. But they're broken down to outstanding or old items, duplicate items, incorrectly coded items, and also these utility checks. And we'll go through these shortly. We've had a question come in. So you can set a turnover threshold of £85,000 and get an alert as someone not VAT registered hits that level in the past 12 months. Yes. Now that's a separate check, actually. So we've got a VAT threshold check as well. Thanks for that question, whereby you can it will notify you if it detects that the client is not VAT registered currently based on the Xero QuickBooks settings, and they hit 90% of the £85,000 threshold. So that you'll get notification then. And also if they go over the £85,000, you'll get another notification as well. But in addition to that VAT threshold check, we've also got these activity, transactional activity data as well, whereby you can actually monitor generally whether packages, have been breached and need to be increase the price of them. Yep. So you can be notified if transactions reach a certain limit. Yes, certainly. And I'll show you that shortly within the system itself. And that's what we'll jump to now. So what you can see in front of you is the advisor dashboard, whereby you would add your clients, so your Xero or QuickBooks clients there on the left-hand side. And you can see which connections currently connected. You can see which team members you've granted access to. You can also invite the client in here if you wanted to for some, for some features of the package that you might want to. You can also apply custom tags. So if you want to split your portfolio, for example, by a monthly bookkeeping versus daily or different teams, whatever is meaningful for you, you can do that here. And you can filter throughout the system based on those custom tags. And before we jump into those data checks for one example client, I'll just run you through some of the other partner dashboard screens as well. The client panorama, which we mentioned briefly, is this bird's eye view of all of your clients and the data health score for all of your clients as per what Zenon Connect has found in terms of the bookkeeping issues. Have the number of issues, the financial value of those issues, when the most recent transaction is, and when the last bank item has been reconciled. So how up to date is this client's file in terms of the bank reconciliations? And how many unreconciled bank items are there currently? And when was the lock date last set? When is that set to now? So you can see how up to date each client is and the data quality of each client. And also you can see this average at the top and the total here, this bar at the top. So this is showing for all clients. But so let's say, for example, we want to have a look at how one team member's doing for the clients they're actually allocated to. You could filter by Brian Hardman in this example, 2 clients. And you can see that got the average bookkeeping health score for that individual team member's clients, total number of issues. So it's a great way of comparing how team members are doing and whether they need extra assistance, for example. You can export this report as well, as you'd expect. Let's have a look. So if we jump into also activity here, this is this transactional activity that we were discussing. So this first screen is what we introduced first, whereby you've got a bird's eye view of the transactional data for all of your clients on one screen. So if you take on a new client, for example, Antelope Limited, you plug it into Zenon Connect. You can specify which period you want to search for those transaction numbers. It's previous month by default, but obviously you could change that to current financial year, previous financial year, or custom date range, or current month. And then instantly you'll see that data changes and gets updated. It gives you the total value in that period that you selected up here, as well as the monthly average there, which is really handy for pricing purposes, obviously, because that's often what we go off is a monthly average. So that's the turnover column. Then you've got a total transactions column with a total value for that period with the monthly average there, as well as a split of those total transactions between invoices, bills, credit notes, bank items, and journals there. Again, you can export all this to different packages as well that you may use in different proposal software. But what we've done recently is we've introduced this activity visualization screen. And if I just go to the settings first, you can see here, so for example, if we have a look at total transaction count. If we price our clients based on number of transactions, for example, or turnover, or number of invoices, number of bills, and so on, or at least an element of the services we provide based on these metrics, then what we can do here is we can set up those package thresholds. So we can say, okay, for all of our clients, if they have no transactions, then they'll be on package 1, more of a sort of a dormant company package. If package 2, or whatever you want to call that, is between 1 transaction and 10 transactions per month. Package 3 is between 11 and 50, and so on. You can set whatever bandings you want there, and you can set a color as well. You can pick a different color. Now we've used a gradient by default here, but you can change that to whatever you want. This information then flows through to the activity visualization screen, but also you'll note here, you can set it so that it generates a notification, which is what we were discussing earlier, based on whether that client's banding has been breached. So if we say that a client is currently on package 2, and all of a sudden, in the last 3 months or last 3 quarters by default here, their actual activity goes over that banding that we specified as their package currently, it will flag up a notification at the top here. And you can see an example of that. Let's have a look here. Client package threshold exceeded here for Dragon Retail Limited. Total transaction count, the threshold of package 4 was exceeded during September 2023. If I just jump back to and see how it flows through. So we've got this total transaction count. We set these packages here, and it will populate them some default packages, but obviously they probably won't be right for your individual practice, so you'll want to change them when you log in. We're saying that this flows through then. These color codes here for these different package thresholds flow through to the activity visualization page. So for example, if we have a look at frozen grapes here, you can see for each of these quarters, the history of these quarters, and you can change that to monthly if you wanted to, or annually. but by default it's quarterly. The most recent quarter is over on the right-hand side here, and it puts the actual values, the actual transactional data through these quarters. So we're saying in quarter ended March 2024 so far, there have been 217 transactions, which is an average of 72 per month, looking at the full 3-month period. And we're saying that in the previous quarter, 318 total transactions, 106 per month for that quarter ended December 23. Now this client here, we've said is on package 4, which is this color code here. And we set that up in that settings page. But now we can see that this color here is darker than package 4. So in the previous 3 months, they've actually gone past the package threshold of package 4. So it will have flagged up a notification, but even if you don't use the notifications, you can clearly see here that this client has breached the threshold of their current package, which we're saying they're on. Therefore, we know at a glance which clients we need to consider repricing based on this color coding. And if you hover over it, gives you the equivalent package that they should be on based on the transaction numbers. So we've got this for total transactions. We've got the same for invoices. You can set different thresholds up. Same for bills. Same for turnover. So if you're turnover based, then obviously you can use that. But obviously you can use it in conjunction with the other ones as well. So you can use turnover based as well as bank transactions, for example, if you wanted to. So it's a really clear and handy way of looking at where that scope creep is for individual clients. Which clients do we need to reprice now because they've gone over their threshold? And sometimes we just put it off, don't we, as accountants and bookkeepers, because it's something that is perhaps a little bit difficult to do because you have to drill down into the individual bookkeeping packages to see what those activity data, whether it's increased or not. And often it's not actually creating the proposal or the repricing document that takes the time. It's working out which clients we need to reprice. And this is where this screen here comes in to really help out with that. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll jump away and we'll go into the main core of the system, which is the data check. So I'll jump into Dragon Retail Limited here, which is an example Xero client we've added to the system. So this screen you can see in front of you, when you've added the client, including the process of adding to the client, you can get to this screen here with this data check having been processed within 4 clicks. That includes adding the Xero organization and authenticating it with Zenon Connect as well. And every night it will automatically resync it as well and look for any additional issues that it finds, or you could do a manual sync as well at the top here by clicking this refresh icon here. It takes about 5 or 6 minutes to do a full refresh for the incremental checks. But if you want to, you can see there's also a micro sync on each individual page if you want to wait just a few seconds just to sync the data you need for that individual data check. Okay. So what you can see in front of you is the bookkeeping health check overview. And the default date is all transactions, so it looks at all history, looks for errors within all history, but obviously you can specify which one you want to. So if you wanted to just have a look at, for example, the current financial year, you can click here and instantly it will change all the stats. You don't have to wait around for it. It will change it instantly. Or perhaps the previous financial year if you're still doing that one. Or perhaps the current month if you're just looking at that. Or you can set it since the Xero lock date. So you're only looking at new issues since you've last locked Xero or QuickBooks. So you can see this health indicator here. It won't mean too much at the moment. It's got 39% health score for this individual client. And we'll drill down into what that means shortly. But you can see it's very clear. It's very transparent. We're checking all activity. Zenon Connect has found 1,615 items. So that's transaction numbers and number of contacts, etc. The number of checks we've currently got is 21, so 21 bookkeeping data checks, which we'll go through shortly. We've got 826 potential issues that have been found here for this demo account, totaling a value of £758,000. Again, that's that health indicator score there. Now you can download this as a PDF. So in that first proposal meeting, for example, you could take this PDF with you straight to the client. So rather than just saying, okay, working out what price we're going to charge a client, you can provide a bit of value here by saying, okay, we're going to be taking on your accounts from the previous advisor. These are the issues we found straight away. So it's going to be quite impressive, if you're taking that into that first meeting with you, along with that transactional data information as well. It's really meaningful, isn't it? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into one of these data checks here, and you'll notice the sidebar stays here throughout all the data check pages, so you can quickly navigate between data checks. And you'll see that it only shows an item on the sidebar here if it's found one or more issues. So if I toggle this show all checks, you'll notice it adds one more data check here for duplicate invoices. Now in this demo account, there's been no issues found for that currently for this client. So if we untoggle that, you'll notice in order to avoid overwhelm for your team members, it hides that data check from their screen. So they just have to focus on the ones that they're looking at. So we'll jump into unreconciled bank first. And this is a very high level prompt for one of your team members allocated to this client to say, well, actually, Zenon Connect's been plugged into this Xero client. It's found there's 2 bank accounts that have got 1 or more items that haven't been explained or reconciled. So we've got an Aldermore Saver bank account. We've got a Starling current account here. There's 3 items here. So if you click on process, this will open up the Xero account if you're logged into the account that actually accesses that organization. And you don't have to be within the organization itself. It will have that deep link to whichever organization it is, as long as you're using the right credentials to log into Xero. Same with QuickBooks as well. And you'll see there's the 3 items here on the reconcile screen. So it's a prompt to say, yeah, we need to process these to bring it up to date. And it will only show items that are within that specific period that you selected here on the left-hand side. But also it's found 3 items that are receive items and 2 items that are spend items that have been explained in Xero, but for whatever reason, they haven't been reconciled. They're showing as unreconciled on that accounts transactions tab behind the scenes on this tab here. So it's a prompt to say, okay, we need to actually look at these items as well. You can see there's 5 items in total there that are unreconciled. So it's a prompt to clear those out. And sometimes they get left, don't they? Got the same for this other bank account here. You can download a CSV of all the outstanding items that you can perhaps discuss or send to the client. Perhaps it's missing bills that you're after. Then you can send that to the client via email, for example. If it's a personal bank account that's been set up that you don't do anything with, for whatever reason, the client's added a personal one or something that you're not monitoring and not reconciling, you can click the red cross icon here, and it will remove that bank account from the data check in Zenon. It won't affect anything in Xero. It will just remove it from Zenon here. You can see the format of every data check is very similar on every data check page. You've got a title at the top. You've got the number of issues that have been found. So there's 63 items here is the total of 8 plus 55 there. We've got an issue, so what, and solution. So every data check page, and perhaps it's more meaningful for those team members which are new to bookkeeping potentially, or haven't got as much experience, whereby it says, this is the reason why we're actually doing this data check. Why does it matter that these bank items haven't been processed? So what does that mean? And so what's the solution? Well, obviously in this case, it's to review the unexplained and unreconciled bank transactions and process each item as appropriate. You can see there's a total potential errors value at the top here, which is the total financial value of all those bank transactions that are unexplained and or unreconciled yet. So that's the first data check page. You can see there's this microsync here as well. So if you click that on these microsync buttons, rather than do a full 5 or 6 minute sync of the whole system, if you don't want to wait around, you just want to sync the one page that you're on, the data it needs for that, click the microsync button, and it'll take as little as 10 seconds to sync the data it needs for that one page from Xero QuickBooks. Now, if we just jump down some of these other data checks, I'm not going to run through all of them because I don't want to take up all of your day, but we'll just jump down to, let's have a look, duplicate bills. This does what it says on the tin. So essentially, it's this, you'll notice it's the same layout. We've got the issue, so what, and solution. We've got the title, the number of issues there, the total financial value issues, the ability to download a CSV of the results on this page here. But you'll see it's found 3 contacts that have got bills which look like they may be duplicates. So at this top example here, Elegant Art Limited, there's 2 bills that have been found dated exactly the same date in this instance. The bill reference is slightly different. The details of that first line item on each bill are different. And look, there's a red flag here. It's got extra page there. So it looks like this top instance of the bill has been added in error. Neither of them have been paid as yet. It's saying paid no here. Total value is exactly the same. So we can instantly see that we probably want to remove this instance here of this bill. We can do that directly from here. So we can push this void command through to Xero from here, and that will remove it from the Xero. We don't even have to go into Xero. Obviously we can do, and more often than not, we probably will do by going view and that direct link straight to that bill there. Let's have a look. That takes you straight to that top bill here. You can see there's the description, that first line item, extra page. Obviously, you can void it from here if you wanted to, or perhaps credit note if it's an older item. Yeah, so that's a great way, a great time saver by being able to push through that void command. If it is a false positive, and you want to actually say that no, this isn't a duplicate, it just happens to be on the same date, the same value for the same contact, and you can dismiss the match and it won't show up again here, that instance of bills, that combination. Now, if you've got a supplier whereby you're going to have a lot of these items which happen to have the same value on the same date. So, for example, you're buying something from Amazon, let's say, which is the same value all the time. Then what you could do is you could ignore this contact and it won't look for duplicate bills for that specific contact again at all on this one data check page. So it saves you clicking dismiss match all the time. Now you'll notice that there's bulk processing options as well. Now in this case, I think it's just dismiss match in Xenon. But if you've looked down all these items and you're happy that none of them are duplicates, rather than clicking dismiss match individually, which obviously you can do, you could instead click dismiss match in bulk and that would dismiss all of them in one go. Obviously, it's more meaningful when you've got 20 or 30 different items there as well. So that's the duplicate bills page. We've got old unpaid invoices, which cuts down the amount of time that you'll be spending in that aged debtors report within Xero QuickBooks. It's pulled out any invoices which are still unpaid after 60 days old. You can change that threshold within settings. And I should mention there's a cog up here in the top right, which will take you through to settings page, whereby you can tweak the sensitivity of each of these data check pages. So the one we're on now is old customer invoices. By default, it's 60 days old or more and still unpaid. It'll flag it up, but you can change that to whatever you want there. Again, there's bulk processing options here. And in this case, you can bulk void items within Xero or QuickBooks, or you can dismiss them in bulk or ignore them for 30 days. And the reason you may want to ignore items on this page for 30 days is because obviously if the customer's not paid yet, but you're expecting them too soon, well, you want this item to be removed from your list for now because you don't want it affecting your health score because you've considered it, but perhaps you want it to reappear in 30 days if it's still unpaid. And that's what will happen if you click the ignore button here. And you've got that deep link straight to the item within Xero. You can void it directly within Xero from here. You can start to raise a credit note pre-populated with the customer's name in Xero straight from here as well, or you can dismiss or ignore the match. We've got the same for on the supplier side for old unpaid bills, exactly the same. We've got old sales credits and old purchase credits. And sometimes for these sales credits, when we're running the aged debtors or aged creditors report, these items get hidden behind the invoice balances, don't they, on those reports? And it's hard to see where there's credit that's outstanding that hasn't been allocated yet. So these data checks, they actually pull out all those credit notes, which have got any remaining credit available on them that hasn't been allocated to an invoice or bill yet. And it's older than 60 days old by default. Again, you can change that threshold there. It will flag it up here. It'll allow you to go straight to that item, that credit note within Xero, void it from here, dismiss it or ignore it for 30 days. Same for all purchase credits as well on the supplier side. And moving down, we've got unapproved invoices on the customer side and unapproved bills. We'll have a look at unapproved bills. So this is a prompt for our team to clear out the draft bills area within Xero. It detects each individual bill that's in draft status still. And it says, well, actually, do we want to approve this? So if we want to approve it, if we're happy that everything's there, all the information's there, we can approve it from here. Or you might want to investigate further within Xero and it'll take you straight to that draft bill. You can delete it. So if you can instantly see that this has perhaps been added twice, or it's like additional documentation which has been uploaded or forwarded automatically to Xero and is sitting there in that draft bills list, you can just delete it from here. You don't even have to go into that draft bills area within Xero to clear it out from here. And that will remove it from the list here as well. Or if you're doing a big clear out within Xero, click the sync button on the top right or the micro sync button, and it will then remove the items automatically from it here. You don't have to click dismiss if you fixed the issue. When you next sync it, it will detect that and it will remove the items from the list for you. So moving on, invoice direct or biller direct may not be intuitive what it means from the title, but if we have a look at the supplier side, biller direct, and I'm sure you've all had this situation whereby you've got an unpaid bill. So we've got Bob the Builder here, the second item down. There's an unpaid bill item dated 1st of January 22, the purchase of bricks there. It's still unpaid. It's not been paid yet. When someone's gone in to reconcile that bank in Xero, instead of putting the payment against the unpaid bill and marking it off as paid, what they've done instead is put it as a spend item straight to the P&L. So currently there's a risk this supplier is going to be paid twice. It's double accounting on the expense. It's reducing profit artificially. So it's a big problem. Obviously, the management accounts being correct, the VAT return will probably be correct, and the year-end accounts will certainly be incorrect. And there's a risk that that client will pay this bill again because it's still showing as unpaid here on the list. So it's a big red flag. It's detected that the date is similar, the amount is the same in this case, and it's the same contact. So sometimes it's hard to see these issues within that nominal ledger and that contact record, isn't it, within Xero and QuickBooks. This looks through each instance whereby the situation has occurred, and it flags it up for you here. Again, you can set the threshold by how close in date the payment has to be compared to the unpaid bill date for it to actually flag it up here. You can set that in settings. I think it's about 30 days by default. If it's a false positive, again, you can just dismiss the match and it won't show up again here. Got the same on the customer side for direct deposits versus allocating it against the invoice. So if it's a direct deposit that's gone to a sales code instead of against the invoice, then it will flag it up here as well. The low-cost assets data check is a look at low-value items that are being put to those fixed asset additions codes, potentially an error. Are we better off writing this tabletop lamp for £71 off the P&L? So we don't have to put it through the fixed asset register. We don't have to depreciate it over 5 years or whatever. We can just say, actually, let's just move that. And if you want to change that nominal code, well, we can do that here. So it pulls in your chart of accounts from that specific client. Change it to repairs, click Save Changes. That will update that bill for Office Furniture Direct within Xero, the account code for it automatically. It won't change the VAT code on the data check or anything like that. It just changes the account code that is actually attached to it. So it's a great and fast way of making sure we're tidying up this nominal code, so we're not unnecessarily putting things to additions. Again, you can dismiss items if you want to, or you can investigate further that bill within Xero with that direct link there as well. On the flip side of that, the capital item review looks for high value items, which are perhaps in repairs and maintenance, or perhaps in IT equipment and the P&L, small value items, that sort of thing. And you can monitor whichever P&L codes you want. It adds default ones that are recommended to monitor, but if you've got custom codes, you can add those as well. So we can see here there's a payment for oak furniture, £400. It's been put to repairs and maintenance. And depending on materiality to this client, how big the client is, and what our own practice threshold potentially is for when we deem something to be a fixed asset versus a P&L write-off. And you can specify that. By default, it's £200 is the threshold or greater, but you can change that within settings on a client-by-client basis. We're saying, well, actually, do we want to capitalize this? Let's change it. Probably not plant and machinery, but as an example, let's change it to that. Let's click Save Changes. And then that will update that account code to an additions code, move it out of the P&L automatically for that spend item here. It's not a bill, it's a spend item in this example, but it could just as easily be a bill like this third item down here. So it's tidying up those fixed asset codes, isn't it, and repairs codes, and making sure that we're not just doing this at year end, making sure that the figures are meaningful as we go on throughout the year, or perhaps every quarter when we're doing the VAT return. The next data check is misallocated items. And this is those broad accounts we're looking at. So things like general expenses, potentially suspense account, unallocated assets in QuickBooks, anything you want to monitor whereby you don't want large items going to, or if there is a large item, you want to make sure that it's been reviewed so that it's relevant to put it to that code. So we're saying here, the second item is a bill for bike supplies from Dave's Bikes, £250. It's gone to general expenses. Can we be more specific with that posting? Can we put it to, I don't know, travel or something instead? And if that is the case, let's just select that account code we want to change it to, click Save Changes. That will update it within Xero directly from here. And these next codes, data check pages, are looking for consistency of posting. So the first one is multi-account suppliers. So what this does, if we take an example of Bob the Builder again, you can see that the contact's Bob the Builder. Zenon Connect has found that recent postings have been put to at least one, or at least two nominal codes. So you can see here there's two transactions, one spend item, one bill, that have been put to direct expenses. But all of a sudden, whoever's done the bookkeeping has gone in and put an item, purchase of bricks as well, to cost of goods sold. So there's lack of consistency. Now, it's not a major difference. It'll still be showing up in the gross profit and the cost of sales area there. But if we do management accounts, it may stick out like a sore thumb. So let's be consistent. Let's be consistent with how we're posting these transactions for Bob the Builder. If it is the same nature, and it looks like it is, it's purchase of bricks, bricks, and bricks for these 3 items. Let's be consistent. Let's go in and change that in this instance within Xero or QuickBooks, change it to direct expenses to keep that consistency there. Now, if we're happy that, okay, it just happens to be that it's the same contact, but we are using a different code, which may be the case. And so think, for example, like Amazon, there may be 5 or 6 different account codes that you're using regularly for Amazon because of the nature, it's a marketplace, there's different nature of transactions there. You can click mark as okay, and it will remove it from the list here because you're saying that you've reviewed that item and you're happy with the code that's being allocated to it. Or you can mark all items as okay for all items that are showing there currently for Bob the Builder. Or, and I recommend for Amazon that you do ignore this contact because you don't want to be having those false positives flagging up all the time and clicking mark as okay. So we give you that ability to ignore contacts within that specific data check page for that contact, and it'll never show up items again for that contact. So we've got multi-tax suppliers. So when you're doing that VAT check, perhaps every quarter, then this is looking for consistency with the VAT code being used for each specific contact. Now we can see here we've got AB Crawford. Looks like it's a director who's also a shareholder for this individual organization. As interim dividends being paid out, as director's loan repayments been going out there. Now, obviously, these transactions are going to have no VAT, and that's the VAT code that's been allocated to these 2 transactions here. Now, someone's gone in, maybe the client themselves or someone less experienced on a team, and they're claiming VAT back, input VAT back on this director's loan repayment here. It's probably going to be incorrect, isn't it? So we need to go into that item and change that code to no VAT probably. But Zenon Connect has flagged that lack of consistency with the VAT account code, VAT code, sorry, being posted for AB Crawford. And it's saying, are you sure this is correct? Because it looks like you're using more than one VAT code for the transactions recently for this specific contact here. Again, you mark as okay if all of these are okay, and you can do that in bulk. Again, you can ignore this contact as well. Okay, so we've also got unexpected account and unexpected tax code. I'll just briefly mention that on first sight, it may appear that they're similar to the last 2 checks we looked at, but instead of looking at past transactions and comparing for consistency, it's comparing in Xero, and it's Xero only for this check. It's comparing the account used on each transaction against the default, which is set up, the account code for that specific contact record within Xero. So if we're saying that the default account code for Bob's Burgers, and if we click view here, it'll take us straight through to Bob's Burgers, a contact record there. Okay, let's have a look. So we've got this item here, we've got Bob's Burgers. If we go into Bob's Burgers, that was a specific transaction. What we're looking at is the contact record. We just wait for Xero to load. Is when we're going into the financial contact details, I think the financial details is these here. The defaults we're setting up for the contact record for each contact. So we're saying other sales is the normal default account code we want to use for sales transactions. And that's why it's showing up here as the default, which is comparing this invoice's sales account code, which has been used. So we're saying this invoice has used 200 sales, but we're expecting it per the default setup for that contact in Xero to be other sales. So it's that lack of consistency there with what we're expecting is being flagged up here. Now we can save changes. If you want to change that to the default, click save changes and it'll update the contact, the actual account code that's been used there for Bob's Burgers for that specific invoice there. And we've got the same for tax code as well. So if we want to compare against the contact record default tax code, we can do that here. For wholesale things, there's a bill here. This transaction for the bills is used reverse charge expenses, but we're saying the default record, default contact VAT code for wholesale things limited in Xero is set up as 20% VAT on expenses. So it's not the same as this transaction. Do you want to correct it? If we do, click save changes here and that'll push that change back to Xero. Now, probably about 50% of practices that we've found do set these contact record defaults within Xero, but some don't. And the reason they don't is probably because it takes quite a lot of time. So what we do is we give you the ability to detect which contacts in Xero haven't got the default codes and VAT codes and account codes set up. And then it allows you to push those changes back. So actually set those default codes. So if we're saying for Accountex Limited, we want to click that as sales, the usual sales account. Tax code, let's say, let's have a look. 100% on income. Do the same for the purchase accounts. Select the defaults there if you want to. Click confirm. That will apply those defaults to that contact record within Xero there. And that will then flow through to that last data check page that we saw, whereby we're comparing each transaction's code against the default record. Now, we created this page, but then we still had a bit of pushback from people saying, okay, that's great, but I still have to go into Xero to have a look, what is the normal code that I want to set to be the default here? So what we introduced with this toggle here, show most recently used codes. It takes a second, and then you'll see these light bulb items show up here, and it says, okay, for Adobe, the most recent sales transaction on the Adobe account has been put to the sales account code. Therefore, if you want to set that as a default, click it here and it pre-populates that drop down there. Let's add these tax codes, let's add these default purchase codes based on what's been used most recently within Xero for that contact record. Click confirm, that will apply those defaults to that contact record within Xero. I'll just jump in back up to duplicate contacts. If you want to clear out the contact list, so if you've got a lot of old contacts in there that you're probably never using or haven't used for a long time, sometimes it's hard to say, okay, which ones do we want to archive, which ones do we want to merge? This data check here looks at, in this case, duplicate contacts. So it looks for instances whereby there's a contact record which has been added more than once. And you'll know from Xero and QuickBooks that if there's a slight spelling mistake when that contact record's been added, maybe it's been pushed in from a different package, different software package into Xero QuickBooks. There's a very slight spelling mistake. So for example, we have a look at Jilly Accountant to Jilly Accountant, that will create a new record within Xero QuickBooks, won't it? And we don't want those duplicate records. We want just to have one truth, one contact there within the accounting ledgers, don't we? So it's easier to reconcile each individual transaction because we know what contact it has to go against. Now, this data check page here looks for consistency, and it looks for any contact records that have been added more than once. It disregards the word limited or LTD because sometimes it understands that those are omitted, although obviously it could be a sole trader versus a limited company version if they've been incorporated. And it tells you which contact record has got data against it. So in this example here, Amazon Marketplace has got an invoice raised against it. It's got a bill raised against it. But Amazon Marketplaces, that different instance of the contact, has got no data against it. So it looks like we probably want to merge or archive this bottom item. So to do that, we would click there and it would take us straight through to that item in Xero. Maybe we then merge it as normal within Xero. We'd like to have the ability to actually merge it from here by selecting which one we want to keep. Unfortunately, at the moment, the Xero QuickBooks APIs don't allow us to do that, but hopefully it'll allow us to soon. It's the same for every other app as well. Now, if it's a false positive, we want to keep Staples and Staples Limited, click Dismiss Match. Again, it won't show up again. Finally, the last check is inactive contacts. And when I mentioned having those old contacts, which perhaps need clearing out because we're not likely to use them again, this data check helps with those. So it detects any contact sitting there in Xero QuickBooks which hasn't been used for a very long time. There's been no transactions allocated against that contact. So we've got Mic Audio here. It was last used, 3 or 4 years ago. Do we really want to keep it on that Xero contact list there, clogging up the contact list, or should we clear it out? If we want to clear it out, let's archive it. That will archive the contact within Xero, just the same as if you clicked archive within the contact record within Xero. Doesn't delete it, just archives it. You can investigate further if you want to by clicking the view button. That'll take you straight through to that contact record in Xero in this case, or dismiss it if you want to keep that item indefinitely, that contact record indefinitely. I hope it's been helpful. Obviously, it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour through all the checks. If you've got any questions, please do let me know. And obviously, I'm happy to jump on the call individually with you. This is the main core of the system that we've looked at is the data check pages. We've also got Zenon Insight, which I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but this looks at those KPIs which you and or your client may be interested in. So things like tracking sales versus the budgets in Xero or automatic targets, as is the case here. So you can set like a 3-month average based on the actuals plus 5%, or you can set manual targets on a month-by-month basis, or you can pull in the budgets from Xero. It looks at recent months and compares the actual sales figure against that budget or target. We've got a cash health check, which gives an early warning system, bit of a notification to say, is there enough cash sitting in this account within Xero to pay the expected outgoings that are coming up based on the trial balance liability figures that are sitting there? We've got the bookkeeping health budget, which is a link straight through to that core system of the bookkeeping health check which we looked at. We've got a high level profitability, which looks at sales versus gross profit versus net profit on a recent monthly basis. So it's helpful for the client to see how they're doing, but also perhaps to find postings which are inaccurate. If something shows up as a large negative value here, it may be that we've missed a sales invoice, or maybe there's something that needs to be prepaid or something like that as well. But corporation tax estimate, which looks at the current and previous 2 financial years, and it allows you to process add backs like entertainment, depreciation, just like you would do at the year end, and apply capital allowance treatment to those additions. And then it will also show you an estimate of corporation tax here, which then flows through to that cash health check at the top here as well. You've got a director's loan health check, essentially, which looks at, is the director's loan account in Xero overdrawn, or is it in good health? Now, in this case, it's in good health. It's got a green tick here. AB Crawford, that director we mentioned earlier, the company owes them £39,000. That's fine. There's no Section 455 beneficial loan interest as well. There's no Section 455 tax. But there would be a red exclamation mark here if that director's loan account is overdrawn. Now, you can monitor whichever account codes in Xero or QuickBooks reflect director's loan accounts. So you might have 2 or 3 different directors. You can monitor them all here, but it adds the default director's loan account automatically when you set up Zenon Connect. Got the business valuation, which is a high-level look at maybe a profit-based valuation model, or a turnover-based, or a net asset-based with multiples you can add in there as well. It's a very high-level conversation starter perhaps for exit planning for that individual client. Got a working capital cycle, monthly comparison there, and we've got a dividend availability. So this looks at what is the realistic level of reserves that are available to be distributed to shareholders. So if it's no MB and they're always asking us, how much can I take out as a dividend now? Because I want to take it out in addition to the small salary I'm taking out. Well, then this will give you that information, also incorporating any corporation tax estimate, which you may not have journaled in there yet into Xero. So it may not be reflected in the reserves balance currently. So you can reflect that as well here. And it'll give you the updated reserves, including that estimate for corporation tax for the current period as well. So these are very high-level KPIs, but they can be really handy. And again, you can download this and you can send it perhaps when you do the management accounts as a little value-added thing that you can send to them as well. So really handy there. Let's have a look what else we've got. If we just jump back to the main dashboard. So hopefully this means a bit more now, where you've seen this health score here. You can see that the core health score, the bookkeeping data check, is shown here. It gives you that bird's eye view to see, well, which one do we need to look at? We can sort by different things. So by default, it's business name, but we could sort by the lowest health score first, or we can sort by which lock date has been set, the most recent first, for example, or oldest first. So it's a really handy way of segregating your portfolio based on tags, based on team members, and allows you to have that oversight of all of your clients and all of your team members, how they're getting on. It's really easy to add a client. You just go through the process with the Add Organization button here. You select Xero QuickBooks. As I say, it's 4 clicks to get to that core data check. It applies default settings. There's no large process you have to go on an individual client-by-client basis. It gives you default settings, which will apply to 95% of all of your clients. But there may be some that you want to tweak those data check settings for, but that's optional after. So there's no large training needs for your clients. Really easy to get your clients set up. There's no training needs for your team member, I should say, actually. But what I recommend you do is just try it out first to get started. Now, what I'll do is I'll jump back to the slides just to show you the pricing and then our offer. So we've got a really low price point. It's as low as £2 per organisation per month to add them to the system. You get everything that you've seen there. So if you've got 100 organisations or more, it's £2 per organisation. But £200 plus VAT for 100. And you can add on chunks of 10 organisations for £2 per client, so £20 extra plus VAT on top of that to add more. So we've got some practices that have, into the thousands of clients that you've got added to Zenon. So we can handle whatever size practice you have there. That's not an issue. But it starts at the starter package. And I always recommend that people, after they've added their one free license, which we'll discuss shortly, they start off with a starter package or a bronze package, add 5 or 10 organizations, just make sure that it works the way you'd expect for a good cross-section of your clients that you've got there, and then decide to upgrade if you've got more clients that you want to add to the system as well. So as I say, you get everything, all these packages that you've seen today. The only thing that differs is the number of organizations you can add and the number of team members. So it starts off at 10 team members till you get to the gold package, and it's unlimited team members there. So it's a really clear and transparent way of pricing it. There's no long tie-in at all. It's a rolling monthly subscription. You can pay annually and get 10% discount if you want. As I say, you get access to everything. But what I recommend you do now, if you scan this QR code here or visit xenonconnect.com/partner-program, it will take you through to the accountants and bookkeepers in practice area, whereby you can set up your partner account for your firm and add one organization, that can be Xero or QuickBooks Online, for free for life. There's no 30-day trial for that. It won't time out or anything. It will stay connected indefinitely to make sure that Zenon Connect is right for you and your practice. Last thing we want you to do is sign up for a package if you're not happy with how Zenon Connect works or you think it won't work for you. But what I also want to do is give you an onboarding session, or one of my team members will, if not me, where we'll walk you and your team through the system to make sure that you're happy with how it works and make sure everyone's on the same page. Now, in order to get started with this free partner account, you don't need to input your card details at all. It's just a free setup. As we mentioned earlier, it's a rolling monthly contract. There's no long tie-in at all. But also, you have the opportunity to shape the future roadmap. Now, most of the features we've brought in the last sort of year and a half have been based on what our accountants and our bookkeepers in practice say they want from the system. That's the way we grow going forward. So yeah, please do get in touch with that. Happy to talk through with you and your team about the options that are there. Thanks so much for taking the time. Obviously, I really appreciate you taking 48, 50 minutes of your time out of your day. I hope it's been useful. I'll pop everybody an email after this with a link to a recording so you can show team members if you want to, and also my contact details if you want to get in touch with me and talk through how the system will work with you in your practice, but also perhaps if you want to see features in the future, we can have that conversation as well. Thanks so much for taking the time. As I say, I hope it's been useful, and hopefully speak to you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye now.